Up until giving a speech about the personal impact of music a few years ago, I had not previously ever really sat back and thought about the way in which music has influenced my development pervasively. I want to speak to you today about music from the example of its impact on me, and it will be my natural companion in speaking with you. It has been observed by many people that an early music and arts training has a profound influence on a person's character and outlook. That influence manifests itself in a variety of ways, providing discipline, clearing the mind, exercising the imagination, in conflict resolution, even with issues of integrity, and in the capacity to foresee the consequences of action or decision. Nothing affects the brain more pervasively than music. So it is fashionable today to defend music education by saying that it assists students in other skills, such as language, reasoning, and the sciences, all of which is true. And whilst I believe we should use all available arguments to defend and promote the fundamental need for formal and comprehensive music education from the commencement of primary school, I have to tell you that it saddens me to think that we are increasingly compelled to defend music by reference to other impacts rather than to music itself. Because music is good for one, period. It is good for the soul. It is good for human tolerance. It opens one's perception. It frees one's mind. Above all, it reinforces our capacity to think, feel, and understand. The feelings released by music and the devotion to beauty it represents are probably some of the most positive, noble, life-affirming outcomes in the diversity of all human activity. The communication between composer, performer, and audience is of unique value. Each music experience is an end in and of itself, with special qualities that are ineffable. Let me elaborate, as it has been central to my life. I was born in 1952, 3 years after Blue Hills began its amazing 27-year run on the ABC radio, when those four remarkably strong women, Bella, Fleur, Mabel and Granny, populated the nation's homes up until 1976. Clearly, Australia is a very different place from the time of Gwen Meredith's radio serial. The evocative themes spoke to that idyllic, secure country place where Australians metaphorically travelled and shared the joys, trials and tribulations of that practically perfect country community. It was a shared fantasy, one built on certainty. That sense of closeness with and fantasy about the land speaks to and reflects a heartland of Australian sensibility in much of our film, television and literature, but it was given its affirmation from music. The Blue Hills theme is, as best I can remember, the first piece of music which I recall with striking clarity.
La mer qu'on voit danser le long des golfes clairs.
Ever since Blue Hills, music has been fundamental to the view of the world and my experience of it. Music has provided almost a natural prism through which I observe and perceive things, so that I never really stand back and think about it, deductively or didactically. I always have music in my head. I carry it around and it resonates. Music is, I believe, fundamental. Not just to a well-rounded education, but also to an expansive worldview, for many reasons. Music teaches us about things that are not discussed or emphasised in our lives generally or sufficiently. It teaches us about beauty and the enduring value of human creativity. Music, like all the arts, provides emotional nourishment. And whilst this is not a contest with the other arts, music is particularly special because it's not primarily about our physical world having only passing reference to it. It's about another mental and emotionally felt place and experience. It so often is not about words or images of our terrestrial world, but rather about invoking deep inner feelings and primal activators in us all. Music is found in all human cultures. It is universally necessary and central to life, whether in an African forest or an Arabic souk, or in a formal concert hall, and on to the many variants and forms we might know on the world stage. It features virtuosity in many guises and in many places. It can be lay across my about the most simple, pure notions of love, through to the most complex romantic expressions of the feelings, conflicts and bonds between men and women. It offers us an expression of the pantheon of all human experience, from the most vulgar to that which is sublime, and in a way that can be gripping and a source of constant self-renewing, abundant satisfactions. Music can lift one's spirits and move us like no other art form, whether it be from the magnificent sound of a single instrument through the glory of the human voice. Music is central to our most sacred devotions and to our most frivolous and delicious entertainments. It is at the core of human experience and expression. It is one of the most inspirational and aspirational phenomena for youth across our planet. It can provide deep satisfaction through playing, singing, composing, dancing, or pleasurably listening. It is fabulously portable and now pervasively available. It provides a creative partnership to lift excitement, atmosphere and meaning in other areas of human creativity, such as the theatre or film or television. It can also reveal newfound wonders in the way it can genuinely surprise one in the manner by which it can catch one up with its profundity. And for me, what is fundamentally important about music and what makes it very special is that it's about using the sense from which in the experience of life we are most desensitized, our hearing. Sight, taste, touch and smell are all senses which we can switch off. We can elect not to experience any particular one of them. We can't switch off our hearing in the same way. And therefore, what we do is we all have much less awareness of and sensitivity about the aural universe, often a cacophony, which surrounds us. Life noise is an atmospheric accompaniment that we are inured to, resulting in the outcome that all too often we are poor listeners. whether that is to something being said or to the rich oral domain provided by any number of musics. It is reflected in the way people rarely register oral communication evenly or accurately. Think so-called Chinese whisper games, or dare I say, lectures and so forth. I suppose that I first fell seriously in love with music when I was 12 and took up the clarinet at school. I had arrived at the clarinet by way of the flugelhorn, and before that the banjo. When I was about 9, my maternal grandfather had given me a large and beautiful old banjo, which I believe he had owned for decades. I remember it as being monstrously large, more than half my then height. My curiosity about and eagerness to learn music has continued ever since. One of many life lessons I acquired in the process of my university study and the active community of fellow composers and performers then was the need to recognise that there are no shortcuts. It was hard work and required a lot of effort and a consistent quest for knowledge. You simply have to learn the repertoire. There's no way around it. In my view, Australians generally do not receive criticism well, and our inability to receive criticism is matched only by our inability to give criticism in a way which is thoughtful, caring, constructive, and nourishing. In music, the situation is quite different, because music is built on layers of disciplined study, and the process of it requires that one develop a disciplined approach which not only welcomes criticism, but actively seeks it out. Music and its health, as with other arts, is dependent on a fairly forensic approach to review and assessment. The discipline acquired in learning music, study, rehearsal, focused effort, intense concentration over many hours, provides the sort of life skills that travel with one forever. They are invaluable and have been central to the work ethic that has informed my own life. I owe all my early practice of management to a diversity of experience. That experience was in promoting all manner of concerts, from the preposterous to the transcendent. Those experiences were a real process of trial and error, I can assure you. And if the most valuable experience is, as I believe, a catalogue of unintended screw-ups, then I had many rich experiences in that period, ones I have never forgotten. I also expanded horizons with all manner of music experiences from my late teens. I travelled through non-Western music and on to popular music, introduced by friends to square old me, when the Beatles, the Stones, and artists like Steve Winwood and Would you know my name if I saw you in heaven? Eric Clapton became welcome in my oral domain. Subsequently, I discovered the joys of modern chanson and two of my favourite songwriters of the 20th century. Night and day, you are the one. Cole Porter and Irving Berlin. And if there's one really great lesson in a music life lived well, it is the lesson of the expansive tolerance and acceptance of many ways to express oneself. It is central to the experience and practice of it. Music and tolerance are close. Following university, I had many managerial positions, followed by a period of study and work in Italy with the late great composer Luciano Berio and the unforgettable mezzo Kathy Berberian. With Kathy, I had the privilege to create 3 great recitals: vocal lecture recital for the Holland Festival, another an evening devoted to many folk songs of our planet, and a third entirely of music by women, entitled Fine Women and Song. On returning to Australia, I worked at Musica Viva, finishing as General Manager. That period really rounded me as a creative manager. I don't think one can ever convey just how expansive the experience of arts management generally, and in particular how very demanding it was in Australia back in the 1970s. Then one had to be a jack of all trades. I learned to be the programmer and planner, to do budgets, negotiate contracts, manage foreign currency, advocate sponsorship, develop marketing campaigns and execute all the advertising, down to actually writing the ads and the press kits. We all did it in the various arts companies back then. It was very much a do-it-yourself era. Colleagues were terrifically generous guides, and I owe a lot to them for their patience and all that I was taught by so many different people. An enduring life lesson for me has been seen in that kind of mutually supportive spirit across the board in so many aspects of the music community, and there's much to be learnt from the selfless sense of community and interdependence that is reflected in it. I think it made many of us strong and resourceful citizens and gave us confidence and resilience. I then went on to take up the position as CEO at the Australian Film Commission 30 years ago. But within a year, I was back at Musica Viva as a board member. I cherish chamber music more than any other. You can't beat a good string quartet, quintet or sextet in my book. It's music making at its most precious, intimate, intense, conversational, fiery, dramatic, and at times so ethereally beautiful that it simply and literally takes your breath away. I've derived more pleasure from the companionship of chamber music and musicians than any others, and value and revere their efforts as peripatetic providers of comfort and solace to publics across this nation and around the world. From working at the Australian Film Commission, I've moved on to have a commercial business career in the film, television and news media. An incidental life lesson there has been that few filmmakers really get music properly. The magical combination of Fellini and Nino Rota, and a few very minor other examples accepted. Work still to be done. The nature of my commercial work is and has always been very demanding. I believe that many of the leadership, management and to the extent that I have them, skills of persuasion are directly attributable to the discipline and experience of my music life in all its strands from school up until my early 30s. Moreover, it was in the arts that I learnt to never, ever give up, to keep on trying and to come at a problem from a variety of angles. There are many challenges before us all in our modern world, but I would say it is vitally important that we renew the discovery of and relationship with music for future generations. It is central to any notion of civil society and civility itself. Personally, music is still the great energiser. It provides a balance in life that is as central to survival as breathing. Put at its most simple, I can't imagine life without it. It has made me who I am. Thank you.